This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. There's been a flare-up in the fighting in the Middle East. U.S. forces have conducted self-defense strikes on targets in southern Iran. Fox's Mike Emanuel.
Targets included missile launch sites and Iranian boats attempting to lay mines.
National security expert Alex Gray.
I think this is a blip in the ceasefire. I don't think it's going to derail the process.
ABC's Ian Pannell says the military action comes as negotiations continue to try and wind down the 3-month-old war.
The president repeatedly talking up a deal with Iran, but after weeks of war, an agreement between the U.S. and Iran appears as elusive as ever.
The White House insists progress is being made on peace talks, and they include an immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
I think there's strong alignment and agreement on what a preliminary draft should look like. It's going to take a couple days to settle on, even down to the disagreements over a word, sentence.
Iran's Ayatollah added to the saber-rattling today by saying U.S. military bases in the Middle East are no longer safe after those self-defense strikes on southern Iran. Voters are headed to the polls today in Texas. It's the Republican primary runoff election for U.S. Senate. Incumbent John Cornyn facing a challenge from State Attorney General Ken Paxton. Cornyn fears if he loses, Democrats could pick up that seat come the fall.
There will be an incredible tsunami of Democratic funds coming in against Paxton were he the nominee.
This argument is made by John Cornyn because he's having trouble in his own primary. There's no data that suggests that he's right. As a matter of fact, most of the polling suggests I'll do as well or better than John Cornyn.
Last week, President Trump announced his endorsement of Ken Paxton, turning this race into a dead heat. The winner will take on Democrat James Tallarico in November. John Cornyn is up against some history today. Only 2 incumbent U.S. senators from Texas have lost a primary election the past 100 years. Only 2. President Trump gets a medical checkup today at Walter Reed Hospital outside Washington, D.C. It's his 3rd visit in 13 months there and puts the spotlight on the president's health ahead of his 80th birthday next month.
Recent polling from the Washington Post and ABC shows that 40% of Americans believe the president has the mental sharpness to do what is one of the world's toughest jobs. That's a 7-point drop from September.
That's NBC's Garrett Hake. An Ebola outbreak in Central Africa is worsening. Nearly 1,000 infections so far. The death toll has topped 200. Correspondent Molly Hunter.
Cases are steadily rising, and aid groups now say they're not getting the resources or equipment that they need fast enough. At this stage, the Ebola outbreak is spreading so much faster than the response.
The head of the WHO is in the Congo today, where the virus is most pronounced. There are 7 suspected cases in neighboring Uganda. An American medical missionary is among those infected. He's receiving treatment at a hospital in Germany and is said to be showing signs of improvement. The evacuation zone around a failing chemical tank in Southern California is shrinking. That's good news. Officials in Orange County say the worst-case scenario of a catastrophic explosion has been averted.
This would have been a huge chemical explosion, and it would have set off likely other chemical explosions from other tanks that are around it and at other properties around the aerospace manufacturing center. So, yeah, this would have been a big deal. So they cleared out 10 square miles all around the area. At the peak, there were 50,000 people who were told they had to evacuate.
ABC's Alex Stone in Los Angeles today. For the first time since 1999, the New York Knicks are headed to the NBA Finals. They swept Cleveland out of the playoffs last night. ESPN's Mike Breen.
It's over. Believe it, Knicks fans, for the first time in 27 years, the New York Knicks are going to the NBA Finals. The dream season continues.
The Knickerbockers will take on either the Oklahoma City Thunder or the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals as they aim to win their first world championship since 1973. Still to come on the Noon Report for Tuesday, new guidance when it comes to vaping, Chuck's beef with meat monopolies, and it's closing time in Albany.
This is meteorologist Ken McKinley. Warm temperatures this afternoon into the 80s in most locations with a lot of sunshine. It'll be another warm day tomorrow before things begin to cool off later in the week. Full forecast details are coming up in about 10 minutes.
All right, Ken, we'll see you then. Let's check the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. With gas prices sky high, hybrid vehicles are becoming more popular. Donnie Nemitz runs a Subaru dealership in western Pennsylvania.
We've definitely shortened our hybrid inventory. It's thinned out quite a lot in the past, I'd say 60, 90 days. I would say that it's probably an increase, 35% increase of people interested in hybrids.
The price at the pump in Pennsylvania and New York is about 10 cents more per gallon than the national average, which is running at around $4.50 a gallon right now. New York lawmakers begin the process of finalizing the state budget this week. They'll be voting on several spending items as the latest state budget in 16 years finally begins to take shape. Already approved in this year's spending plan are changes to the school foundation aid formula and a 5-year delay in the electric school bus mandate. Last week, lawmakers signed off on controversial ICE reforms. The final price tag on the budget, anywhere from $262 to $270 billion. The 2026 legislative term is scheduled to wrap up next Thursday. New concerns are emerging for Republicans in Pennsylvania as the dust settles from last week's primary elections. Nearly 500,000 more Democrats cast votes for Josh Shapiro than Republicans did for Stacey Garrity in their uncontested gubernatorial races. Also, Governor Shapiro has a huge money advantage right now, about $37 million to Garrity's $3 million. Still, Garrity remains upbeat, insisting that local issues will trump national concerns in the upcoming midterms.
They're trying to make it a referendum on President Trump, but I'll tell you, it's a referendum on the failed policies of Josh Shapiro because Pennsylvania ranks 38th economically. We rank 39th in education, where 7 out of 10 of our 8th graders can't read at grade level, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Pennsylvania Republican Party Chair Greg Rothman says the GOP needs to embrace early voting and voting by mail in order to make the governor's race competitive this fall. A 23-year-old is dead following an early morning fire in Wayne County, Pennsylvania. Crews were called to a home on 7th Street in Honesdale around 2:30 this morning. The fire chief says 2 others in that home were flown to a burn center in the Lehigh Valley. No word yet on what caused that deadly blaze. A crossing guard for the city of Rochester, New York, is behind bars today for allegedly attacking an 18-year-old girl who mistook him as her driving instructor. The suspect is 58-year-old Wayne Plummer. He's facing 2 counts of sex abuse and unlawful imprisonment. Cops say the teenage girl from Orleans County took a bus to the city for a driving school appointment. While waiting outside that school, Plummer reportedly drove up and started talking to her. The victim thought the man was her driving instructor and got into his car. That's when police alleged that Plummer took her to his apartment and assaulted her. Rochester Police Captain Greg Bello says there's a lesson to be learned here from this horrible crime.
Always know what vehicle you're getting into. Parents, family members know, what vehicle you're getting into or your family member is getting into to ensure that safety that goes along with it. Because those driving schools, I know, take a lot of precautions as well to make sure that their employees and those working at the schools are safe places, because it's typically teenagers getting into the cars with them.
The 18-year-old victim was eventually able to send a message to her family for help. The family then contacted police, who got that girl out of there, and then they subsequently arrested the crossing guard. Bernard, who's in the Monroe County Jail today. Pennsylvania Representative Brenda Pugh says the use of text messages to contact drivers about unpaid tolls raises a lot of red flags. That's why she's sponsoring a bill that's aimed at strengthening privacy protections for motorists. Her legislation limits text communications from PennDOT or the Turnpike Commission for toll-related notifications. Pugh says scam messages about unpaid tolls have been a problem for PA drivers in the past and have caused confusion as well about whether those texts are even real. The Pennsylvania Attorney General has reached an agreement with an insurance giant after artificial intelligence played a role in affecting insurance coverage. Family Life's Brian Query explains.
Attorney General Dave Sunday has announced an agreement with insurance company Geico after investigating a complaint involving a West Philadelphia driver. Officials say the woman's policy was flagged for review using a tool with AI features and was later canceled without clear notice, leaving her unknowingly uninsured. Under the agreement, Geico will extend deadlines for customers to submit documents and simplify residency verification requirements. The company also agreed to follow Pennsylvania Insurance Department guidance regarding the use of artificial intelligence in insurance reviews. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer is sponsoring a bill to break up meat monopolies in an effort to drive down the cost of beef at grocery stores. The top-ranking Democrat on Capitol Hill made a pitch yesterday for increased competition while visiting a mom-and-pop meat shop in New York's Capital District.
We believe in competition in America. When Mr. Ostrowski wants to buy meat, if it was 20 years ago, he'd have probably 50 or 60 different people he could go to, and one of them would charge a lower price to get a better deal. Now there are so few that he's limited. When you don't have good old-fashioned American competition, the prices go up.
Schumer says just 4 companies control 85% of the meat market in this country. His Family Grocery and Farmer Relief Act promotes more competition within the beef industry. Beef prices, by the way, are about 20% higher today than they were 1 year ago. Pennsylvania can move ahead with spending more than $700 million to expand high-speed internet access in rural communities. Federal officials have dropped a challenge that was tied to state labor law. This funding is expected to help connect roughly 130,000 homes and businesses that still lack broadband service. The FDA has approved the use, sale, and marketing of flavored vaping products. It's the first time ever the FDA's green-lighted non-tobacco vapes, and this decision's garnering a lot of reaction. Cameron Chafee with Tobacco Free Central New York says vaping can cause serious lung damage in children.
I think we're seeing a lot of the negative effects in the studies coming out now, which still includes like popcorn lung, which is a chronic lung condition. It's irreversible.
But Yael Ozaski with the Consumer Choice Center tells Spectrum News the government's guidance on vaping is on point. He thinks the FDA decision can actually help people.
People who are trying to quit don't want the same taste of tobacco when they're switching to a new product. Parents are better able to surveil their kids, to actually parent, actually promote healthier decisions. I think that's a good thing, and it's something that we should promote a lot more.
The FDA describes vaping as a less harmful alternative to smoking, and its new guidance makes it crystal clear. Vaping products are not allowed to be sold or marketed to anyone under the age of 21. The Scripps National Spelling Bee starts today in our nation's capital, and a Horseheads, New York middle schooler will be among the nearly 275 spellers who are taking part. Alex Bosek will be competing for a chance to win $50,000. Way to go, Alex. The Spelling Bee finale will be broadcast live on the ION television network this coming Thursday. We've got sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the New York Knicks are into the NBA Finals for the first time since 1999. They swept the Cleveland Cavaliers after blowing them out in Cleveland 130-93. Karl Anthony Towns had 19 points and 14 rebounds. OG Anunoby chipped in with 17 points. Landry Shamet had 16 off the bench. Mikal Bridges and Jalen Brunson both scored 15 points. The Knicks are now riding an 11-game winning streak in these playoffs, and Brunson, Bridges, and Josh Hart, all who won national titles as teammates at Villanova, will now try to win an NBA title against either Oklahoma City or San Antonio. To baseball, Anthony Volpe hit a 2-run single in the top of the ninth, and that gave the Yankees a come-from-behind 4-3 victory in Kansas City. Cody Bellinger had a home run for New York. In New York, the Mets fell to the Reds 7-2. The Amazons have now dropped 6 of their last 7 games. Kyle Schwarber did it again. He hit his 21st home run of the season as the Phillies shut down the Padres in San Diego 3-0. Jesus Luzardo tossed 6 innings of no-run ball, and he struck out 6. In Pittsburgh, the Buccos got a 7th-inning home run from Henry Davis, and they sent the Cubs to their 9th straight loss 2-1. And on the ice, Carolina won their 2nd straight overtime contest against the Canadiens 3-2. The Canes are now up 2-1 over Montreal. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report, Texas takedown, Ebola outbreak, and experiencing El Salvador in Cortland, New York. It's today's Mission Pulse, and it's coming up next.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street. Dr. John Lennox is a renowned mathematician, bioethicist, and lay theologian who's written many books on religion, ethics, and the relationship between science and God. His most recent work, God, AI, and the End of History, and also the book 2084 and the AI Revolution, both confront the challenging and confusing reality of AI, all from a Christian worldview. In our recent conversation for the Breakpoint podcast, Dr. Lennox made an essential distinction between narrow AI, that's high-performing processing tools that easily integrate into modern life, and artificial general intelligence, or AGI. That's the idea of superintelligence based on existing human intelligences, or something just radically new. It's the AGI version of AI that's evoking such serious concerns today. As Dr. Lennox clarified in our conversation, what's driving much of the push for AGI is transhumanism, a worldview that stands in stark contrast with Christianity. Here's Dr. Lennox.
Part of the AGI hype is the desire on the part of people like Yuval Noah Harari to create transhumans. We're evolving up to a higher stage. We take our own genetics into our own hands, and we develop superhumans, and so achieve a certain kind of immortality. And I found it very interesting that he suggested in his bestseller, Homo Deus, he suggested that the agenda for the 21st century really amounts to, firstly, to solve the problem of physical death. He said, in a short time, we won't have to die. We can die, but we won't have to, because we solve this physical dying as a technical problem. Secondly, we will massively increase human happiness by biogenetic engineering, merging with machines and all the rest of it. And that's their plan, to achieve some kind of eternal life. Now, when I meet that, I have a habit of smiling at people and say, you're too late. And they say, what do you mean we're too late? Well, I said, the problem of physical death was solved 20 centuries ago when God raised Jesus Christ from the dead. And as for uploading our brains into some kind of silicon state, I can tell you of a far better and much more credible uploading. Because, and this is the point where I think the Christian message makes a lot of sense to people. I say, look, because God has, in that sense, solved the problem of physical death, then the Christian message is centered on that and says because of it, he can offer anyone who trusts Jesus that he will one day upload them into another world and they will live permanently because they will have received a new life in this age that will carry them on into eternity.
Throughout our conversation, Dr. Lennox reminded me repeatedly in Scripture, we're told first to not be deceived, and second, to not fear. That same exhortation applies to us today as well. Catch the entire conversation with Dr. John Lennox this Friday on a special edition of the Breakpoint podcast. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet.
Thank you, John. Outside we go next. It's weather where you live with meteorologist Ken McKinley.
Good afternoon. A beautiful day underway across the area. Temperatures are on their way up. We'll reach the 80s in most locations this afternoon. Generally clear night tonight. A couple of clouds in Pennsylvania, but nothing of any consequence. Low temperatures 50s and low 60s overnight. A good deal of sunshine for most of tomorrow once again, although there may be a couple of showers popping up across the southern tier of New York and into Pennsylvania areas later in the afternoon. Perhaps a thunder shower in some spots. Still 80 or better. It will be a bit cooler on Thursday. A couple of showers here and there in New York locations, but a fair amount of sunshine as well. Daytime temperatures, though, only in the 60s to low 70s.
All right, thank you very much, Ken. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening Tuesday, the 26th of May. There have been new strikes on Iran, the Pentagon launching what it called self-defense attacks on missile launch sites and Iranian boats that were laying mines. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the prospects for peace.
It's either going to be a good deal or there isn't going to be one.
NBC's Richard Engel.
President Trump is now adding a major new condition, writing that as part of the Iran deal, he expects all countries that took part in negotiations to make full peace with Israel and join the so-called Abraham Accords. That is likely to be a major sticking point for many Middle Eastern and Islamic nations.
Iran's Ayatollah today said U.S. military bases are no longer safe after those strikes in southern Iran. The World Health Organization says medical responders are trying to play catch-up with a deadly Ebola outbreak in Central Africa. That virus has killed more than 200 and infected nearly 1,000 more. The Democratic Republic of Congo's been hit the hardest. Several neighboring countries are at risk. Republicans in Texas are deciding today who they want to represent them in the U.S. Senate. Incumbent Republican John Cornyn is facing State Attorney General Ken Paxton. Paxton is the pick of President Trump. Cornyn says despite that endorsement, he's confident he will emerge victorious tonight.
I've represented Texans a long time, and I know Texans are pretty independent, and people will be making their own choices.
The winner in today's runoff election will face Democrat James Tallarico in November. Kentucky Republican Congressman Thomas Massie may be looking to win back a seat in Congress after his tough loss in last week's GOP primary. Tammy Trujillo has that story.
Massie has filed documents needed to run for Congress in 2028. Candidate Ed Galbraith beat out Massie in Kentucky's Republican primary earlier this month, likely due in large part to President Trump's political backing. Massie has explained that filing the new campaign paperwork allows him to keep fundraising as he decides whether to again seek federal office. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
President Trump gets his annual physical today at the Walter Reed Naval Hospital in Maryland. Last year, doctors diagnosed Trump with chronic venous insufficiency, which features mild swelling in the lower legs. The commander-in-chief will turn 80 years old on Flag Day, June 14th. NASA gives an update this afternoon on its plans to build a moon base. Mark Mayfield has that story.
In a statement, the agency says it intends to share moon-based plans and highlight progress towards a sustained presence on the lunar surface. NASA is building off the success of the recent Artemis II mission around the moon with its ambitious plan to create a permanent base. It hopes to have the base up and running within the next 7 years. I'm Mark Mayfield.
That press conference at NASA planned for 2 o'clock this afternoon. America's longest-running Red Lobster in Tallahassee, Florida, is no more. That restaurant opened in 1970. Red Lobster's closed dozens of locations across this country since filing for bankruptcy in 2024. Uber and Lyft drivers in Massachusetts have formed the country's first rideshare workers union.
This is a historic day for the state, for the country. We have
Lyft and Uber drivers being able to unionize. That means better pay, better wages for them, for their families. So it's a really good thing.
That's Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey. The New York Knickerbockers are partying like it's 1999. That's because they're going back to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1999. They swept Cleveland out of the playoffs last night, and hoops hysteria is back in the Big Apple.
Let's go, New York.
Let's go, Knicks!
Knicks power forward Karl Anthony Towns.
We've put each other in positions to succeed and excel, and because of that, we're finding ourselves with this hat, this trophy, this shirt, and having a chance to cement ourselves in history.
The Knicks await the winner of the Spurs Thunder series. The NBA Finals begin next Wednesday, June 3rd. You're listening to the Noon Report for a Tuesday on Family Life.
This is Mission Pulse. We spotlight ministries making a difference where you live, across the country, and around the world. This week, we're spotlighting Dan Nichols with Grace Christian Fellowship and Compassion Experience. Tell me what Compassion Experience is. What do you have planned?
Yeah, so Compassion International is an awesome organization that releases children from poverty in Jesus' name. And our church, and actually several churches around central New York, are adopting El Salvador. This nation has 240 frontline church partners that provide holistic care for kids across El Salvador in their child development centers that are actually local churches led by awesome national pastors, and they need our kingdom teamwork to help release children from poverty in Jesus' name in that nation specifically.
Wow. Is that normal to adopt an entire country?
No, but we believe that God's kingdom has no turf wars, and we love it when the capital C church comes together rather than staying isolated. So our network, Northeast Collaborative, is bringing together churches who want to do this together. And Compassion has actually told us they haven't really seen this before. They've worked with a lot of large churches, but individual local churches, not necessarily multiple churches taking on a nation that currently has around 10,000 unsponsored children. And Compassion's bringing a truck that gives a simulated experience in our parking lot for several days for families and children to kind of, experience what it's like to go to another nation like El Salvador and experience what children experience in nations that are developing like they are.
When is this happening?
Ours at Grace Christian Fellowship in Cortland is going to be on August 16th. So the truck is going to be in our parking lot for 2 days leading up to and including our Compassion Sunday on August 16th. And we're just inviting other churches and other followers of Jesus, and even those who don't follow Jesus but care about releasing children from poverty. We'd love for you to consider jumping on board with this really awesome initiative.
It's pretty crazy. So 7 churches in upstate New York have bonded together, which hasn't been done, sponsored an entire nation, El Salvador, and are asking other churches to take part so that people can come and experience this truck in August.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 different stories, 2 different children that are from different nations, and you would go into this truck with your family and you would have headphones where you're going to listen to a narrated walkthrough, and you're going to be in simulated homes similar to what my wife Joy and I experienced when we went to El Salvador ourselves last year. So we got to take a trip with Compassion and enter into the homes of families who were receiving incredible help through the child development centers. And so instead of taking that trip, this truck experience will allow a narrated walkthrough of what it's like to live in another country and to experience poverty, unlike what we have here in the United States.
I love your heart for these kids and the work that you're doing. And I love that you've been there because you can speak from experience because you've seen it firsthand. And has there been a shift in you from going on that trip? Have you seen a big impact from the work that you've been doing there?
Yeah, so we went to one child development center that was providing clean water at like 80% more affordable rate than the going rate in town. So they were saving their town 80% of costs to have clean water so that they wouldn't have this disease that was going through the town. And it was amazing to see that firsthand, but to also see people taking the call to be the hands and feet of Jesus seriously. And I think oftentimes in American Christianity, we can kind of fall into this thing I would call cultural Christian, where it's like, yeah, Jesus is cool, but it doesn't really affect my day-to-day life. But in El Salvador, we saw it in real time where they're actually looking at their community and going, man, like, we can make a difference. We can make a change. And that was amazing to see firsthand.
By having people come and walk through this truck, what are you hoping the outcome will be?
I'd love for us to invest in a vision that goes beyond our lifetimes. I had a mentor in high school who told me, Dan, if your vision can be fulfilled in your lifetime, then your vision is far too small. So El Salvador is a nation in transition. The gang activity has been cleaned up for the most part, but now they're in a season of now what? What about infrastructure and healthcare and education and taking care of many fatherless children whose fathers are in jail because of gang activity? And so taking up sponsorships for kids and being able to write letters, it's really not a lot per month. I believe it's $43 a month. My wife Joy and I ourselves sponsor 2 children through Compassion and have for many years. We actually got to meet a young girl named Adriana who we started sponsoring on that trip, and we got to meet her and her mom, and man, just an amazing thing when you start to invest in not just the here and now, but you get to invest in eternity this way.
Why do you do what you do? It'd be easy just to cut that check every month and say, hey, I'm doing something for the kingdom and move on. But getting churches to band together, having Compassion come out in August, that's a big undertaking. It'd be very easy just to send Compassion money and check the box. Why take it farther than that?
I genuinely believe that Jesus is everything he claimed to be. When I was a child myself, my parents modeled a life that was sold out for him as the king of their lives, and I made Jesus the Lord and leader of my life. My sister did as well, and the road hasn't been easy all the time, but it's been entirely worth it, and I believe the fastest track to a wasted life is one lived for yourself.
Powerful stuff there. Someone should put that on a bumper sticker. Pastor Dan Nichols with the Grace Christian Fellowship Church in Cortland, New York, speaking with our own Sarah Harnish. The name of the program, Mission Pulse. Tuesdays during the Noon Report, we spotlight ministries making a difference where you live, across the country, and around the world. And finally at noon for a Tuesday, the invasive Asian jumping worm. Yeah, that's what it's called. And it's showing up in parts of New York and Pennsylvania. Correspondent Sarah Lee Kessler.
Experts say these wrigglers can jump up to a foot off the ground. They eat leaves, burrow into the soil, and can damage or destroy plants, vegetable gardens, your lawn, and even the soil's ecosystem. These pests look different than regular worms with their gray bodies and white collars and slither around like snakes. They've turned up in 38 states. If you see one, you're advised to bag it, freeze it, or leave it in the sun for 6 hours, and then throw it out. I'm Sarah Lee Kessler.
All right, Sarah, thank you for that. And that's our world, the world we live in. Tuesday, the 26th of May. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.